another third-party review, and today we're going to be taking a look at Maketoys Crane and Dumptruck, set B of the Maketoys Combiner Giant. And let's just get right to it and take a look at the toys. What I really like about these Maketoys Constructicons is just how realistic they tend to look. They look very much like what you would see out on the road. Even really nice detailing with the grille and the headlights and turn signals. This side is a little bit more ugly when you start seeing like Devastator's head sitting there and stuff, but what can you do? Even the back has some nice tail lights painted on, whereas the Hercules set, I feel like a repro label set is sometimes necessary to really expand on what you're looking at. These guys, I think, nail it. In terms of this boom, let me angle this. You get up and down movement, and then it extends out. That's all it does. There's no extra articulation or anything. It doesn't rotate left or right, just up and down. Now, I've actually modified my crane a little bit, and you'll see that later when we get to it. It's a real easy mod if you guys want to do it yourself. I think it really improves the figure, but we'll get there after. Let's look at Dumptruck now. So Dumptruck is a dump truck. And I look at this guy and I just get one of those like Tonka toy type feels out of it, and that's really cool. You know, just very realistic looking. It does lose a little bit when you get to the back and you see fists and whatever these are, which are actually the combiner pegs. And that kind of breaks it up. There's no articulation on the bed, so the only thing he can do is roll extremely well. Now, he does come with some accessories, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I hate these things. They just plug in on the top here if you want them, and you just kind of peg it on in, and you can hold them like that, and you can peg them throughout various things. And actually, let me pull this real quick. This is one of those trailers. You can actually use that when it's in the combined mode and plug it in. What these are screwdrivers. Now, this is plastic. This is not going to actually do anything. You're going to just rip the chrome off and mess them up. So don't actually use them as a screwdriver. I know someone out there is probably going to try it, but don't, because it's not going to work. But you can plug it in, and then you can plug this into the fist and give them a giant screwdriver arm or whatever. The reason I hate these is because, I don't know, it shouldn't bother me because it's just an extra accessory. And this one's really stuck. There we go. Flathead Phillips. And these are just extra accessories, and I don't know why they bother me so much. Mostly I think it's because, why does Devastator need Phillips and flathead screwdrivers? I guess they're just there for fun, but for some reason I just find myself really not liking them and wish that they did something else with these, or just not include them, to be completely honest. They do come with also a gun, or a piece of it. You can see it's actually only half of a gun, and it's actually gonna, looks like you're gonna get some slots and stuff, or pegs on the other half to plug it in. And if you had the set from the first one, you could see there's the oval, and you have kind of the half of it. So it's definitely gonna fit in like this, actually, like this, to make some giant cannon. And I assume if you really want, you could take these out, make it look like that if you really wanted to. It's pretty cool looking. But of course, you could take the guns and they just kind of split apart like that. And if you so choose, you can actually just peg them onto the side of the vehicles here. For instance, like that. And on crane, you need to flip this. Nope, just leave. Yeah, you flip this like that so the handle's up. You actually put the molded side in and you peg it right onto there. Now, I don't really care for that. I mean, it's a way of not losing your stuff if you want to display them in alt mode, but whatever. I'd never use that. It's if they're in alt mode, then they're gonna be displayed without. Now, before we go on to anything, let's pull in the other members here so you can kind of get a look at them. And yeah, it's a nice set so far. Again, I'm running into a space issue. To show 6 of them is going to be challenging, but there you go, they all look very nice together. So let's just go and take these guys to their combined mode form right now. I'm not going to show them with the arms and stuff. I want to save that for a Devastator review, so I'm just going to take these guys to their, the Giant review. So I'm just going to take these guys to their combined mode, and yeah. We'll see that you'll see it all combined later on down the road. So first thing you gotta do, we'll start with Crane. You gotta get in here and pull this little gray thing out. Unfortunately, I have no fingernails, so what I usually end up finding myself having to do is just kind of lift that up like I'm going to transform him and just kind of get in from underneath, and then I plug it all back together. But it's certainly a lot less frustrating. So you pull that little peg out, and just like you would with a hook, whoever that may be, you kind of flip it in half here and plug that in, and there's a little tab and hole there, and then you just kind of set that down. Then you're gonna lift his head and move the helmet up so you can see his face, and then you just slide it over on this track. Now let me show you guys this real quick. I did some modifications here on the back of mine. You can see I've actually dremeled this out, and I actually dremeled a little bit of this away. It's because if you get this guy out of the box, he can lift his head about that high, but he's always kind of looking down. So if you actually, it's a little bit lower, he's kind of like that. So by dremeling that away, it didn't help too much, but I gave him at least a little bit extra so he can kind of look a little more straight. I don't really like that system there, that he can't really look around, but hey, what can you do? And another thing that's pretty cool about this is you can pull this out and you can snap that down and back up, so when he's combined he could have the crane like that, so it's not sticking out way back to here. But yeah, and then once you have this, all you have to do is open these little slots on the side, and they're pretty much just going to sit straight up, and that's where your arms are going to go. And everything on this guy as they connect together is held together by clips, basically. So you have these little black or gray tabs here that you have to push, and by pushing it you actually get the locking mechanism inside actually moves. So pretty cool. It's a very solid connection, but we'll get to that more a little later. I always find I have trouble getting this guy apart to take him back to his regular mode because this gray clip holds pretty well. So let me just put him back. It's pretty interesting how the Devastator head hides in this piece too. It's on a rotation, so it actually swivels into the helmet. It's pretty cool. Now, I gotta say, as cool as these guys are, the instructions to figure out what you're supposed to do with these guys is pretty awful. Like, they're really hard to follow, I find. But nonetheless, once you get it done the first time, you realize that it's not that hard. Oh, and through transformation, I should show you that this guy actually can turn his wheels. It's part of transformation, but it's something he can do nonetheless. So, to take him, we untab this. We rotate these wheels on down to the sides. Then, rotate the legs down. And then you have to flip these around, and in the process, flip this wheel on the other side. And then they tell you, and I'm not sure if it's right or not, but you flip his little foot and up is like almost like a shin pad or something, a knee guard, I guess. So I would repeat that process here. Flip the wheel, rotate, and then you take this and just kind of swivel it on down. And I find this is a little bit tough to work with, this panel here, but it's not too bad. And this guy also has some modifications, and I do not recommend transforming him into his robot mode unless you're willing to do it or make a compromise, but we'll get there after. So then you just kind of peg that all together, and you see the difference in the legs because I forgot to flip that. And then all you do here is disconnect this, and just like you would with the Hercules version, you just kind of rotate them down. But one other tiny little step that I tend to forget to do a lot of times is you're supposed to take this piece and kind of swivel this on in before you do that. So swivel them on in on top of each other, and then you can swivel it on down. And everything wants to swivel on it now. And that'll help it all fit together a little bit nicer. And you could still leave this piece plugged in, but it'll look like that basically. And I think you can actually rotate these more if you want. They do show these being attached on the back, but I don't like them, so I don't care, so I just leave it like that. And there you go, there's the torso mode. And you see he's got these nice big clips right there. And yeah, that's gonna help make him very steady when we get to Devastator. Alright, so let's go and continue on to the bot modes now. I had to pause because I had to sneeze really bad. So to get this guy to his bot mode, you can lift this up and you're gonna rotate the feet back around this way, which means you gotta swivel the wheels back out. So do that again. Move this back out. And what you're gonna do is take this leg, and this is kind of on a swivelly hinge thing. It's hard to describe. It's hard to see there. It's this piece here. The whole thing just kind of rotates, and there's on the combiner socket or peg, there's a hole and there's a tab here, and you just kind of have to get it in the right position that you can get this thing to peg in together. Once you do, it'll be a solid connection, and then you just bring his foot down and rotate this, the little foot assembly, and you can bring this down. And we'll do that again on this side. You take it, you lift it up and forward, we get it to lock in here, flip his foot around, and there we go, we got his feet. And they're pretty good feet. He does have a tendency to like to fall over sometimes, but we'll get to that. You take these back skirts now, and you just kind of take them and fold them down like this. And we're done with that. Now we split the arms like this, and then you kind of disconnect this arm assembly from the back of the bed, and you see as the elbow it'll come detached so you can pull it on out. And he's got some huge fists, and you can kind of do what you want with these. I've seen them up, I've seen them angled out or down, whatever you like best. So we'll just do the second side here. Unplug his fist, flip it around, and you take his head, you flip it up, and you flip it around, And there you go, you got long haul. And you feel like he's looking down. And here's the part that you don't want to do. Why is it doing this? I popped it up too high. Nope, I popped it up just fine. That's strange. This head is weird. I never noticed this until now, of course, but if you pop it up to where it's gonna click into place, then he's not really looking up, or looking straight ahead, he's looking down. So don't do that. Just leave it like that. Anyway, so he's pretty much done, except you got this. And this is what I recommend not transforming this piece, or if you're afraid to do any modifying, just don't, because there's been pictures online of these hinges inside actually breaking. And what you've got to do is, if you can, let me see if I can get a light in it there. If you look inside, you can see that I've used my Dremel and actually carved away bits in there. There's little stops in there basically that make these hard to move, and you need to unscrew these 6 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You gotta take those screws out, and you actually have to separate him and actually just Dremel that away, and do it enough that you can move it one time, which is going to be scary, but then you can access it better from the back and Dremel it more. These are prone to breaking if you don't do that, so you need to be real careful with this piece. It's a bad break, and it's going to ruin your long haul in all but robot mode. So if you can live with him looking like this, do it. I mean, he just has a truck for a back. Right, just do that or modify it, but don't transform those flaps until you get to that point. So anyway, that's enough rambling. You probably understand. There he is. There's long haul here. We'll put him back, and actually before we do that, let's go ahead and we'll give him the one gun that bolts to the back of his truck. We'll put him to the side. And now we'll go with crane slash hook. And again, I really like the cranes. So what you can start by doing, and it's really strange, they tell you to hold this in and then lift this flap, but I find you don't even really need to do that. You can just kind of do the swivel of the legs, usually will make it come out. There we go. Yeah, just kind of separate them, and that saves a lot of trouble versus trying to do that. And as far as I can see, I'm not pushing on any peg or anything, so that's fine. So once we have that, you can flip this out, and you flip that all the way up on both sides, and then you just kind of flip the legs on out, and you've got his feet, one of his feet being made up of Devastator's head. And see, then this thing is just kind of there. I usually just peg it back in. You'll get a better range of movement if you don't, but whatever. Now we come up to the top part here, and you already kind of saw me take this apart once. You kind of lift it out, and then these gray pieces will actually slide in there to give you a full movement. And then you can just kind of separate these, and you have to, let me get a good view here, you have to kind of pull the tops here, because it's going to slide gray pieces out here, and then you can kind of rotate them down all the way and flip them. And this is where my big complaint on this toy is. And actually, you already see what I've done to modify this. This should be on this side. And I'm just going to show you how they intend it to be. First, you flip his head up, and you flip it around, That's pretty nice. And there you go. You got hook transformed. And you have this crane, which is so dumb. It just sits there. Now you can, like I said, pull this out and do this. But, I mean, what are you doing with that? It's just awkward and in the way. And so, he just looks like, you know, those Energon toys that had the actual crane for an arm. How the pictures do it and kind of disguise it is they bring it all the way up and let it sit in the back like this, and now it doesn't look like he has any of that going on. Let's raise this a bit more here now that we're a little higher. Yeah, so you can't see any of that stuff, and I think they do something like that in the pictures to kind of be deceiving on how the crane is sitting. So what I did is there was one screw here. I undid that screw, which let me pull it out. So now he doesn't have the crane. So then what I did is, if you look at my peg there, you can see that I've dremeled that down a little. There's a slot right on the top here where everything had fit together previously. And if you dremel that away, and you kind of check and dremel, and then check and then dremel, you can actually just plug that right in on his back. And I think that looks a ton better. Just to be able to store the crane just right on his back there. And now his arm is free, you know, he's got no bulk there. You can hold his arms up like this without extending up another, you know, 6 inches or whatever. So yeah, I really like that. And I think if you own sets, you shouldn't be afraid to modify your toy a little bit to get something that you like. And so we can give him his gun, which is so big that it pokes into his arm. I suppose you could have him hold it the other way, but it doesn't look right that way. So you give him his big gun. And let's go over the articulation. So articulation on these guys is pretty good. It's all ball joints, so that's nice. You get some nice, you know, elbow, double jointed elbow, so he's getting a nice tight move there. Nothing in his fist. He does have, his head is kind of on a ball joint, but it's one of those very limited sockets that he's not doing much, but he's looking around pretty good. Legs, again, ball joints. Pretty much anything you want there. If you unpeg this back panel, he can go all the way back. Nice knee. A little bit awkward looking knee, but it's okay. And that's it. You do have the upper thigh rotation up here, but it's pretty stiff. But overall, some really nice posability options with these guys, just like the previous two. And let me put his crane back on. And when you do that modification, as you can see, the gun and stuff still will peg into it. Getting on to heavy labor here. Oh, long haul. You know, I find it a problem that the TFC Hercules, aside from the combined mode, I find the names of the TFC toys so much easier to remember than the actual Generation 1 Transformer. How sad is that? Anyway, moving on. Again, ball joints here, so you're getting pretty good range of motion. You do have an upper swivel, a nice elbow, and of course this time the fist rotates, but it's a bit awkward just because it's more due to transformation. Head, again, sort of on a ball joint. I find him much more limited, especially if you pop his head all the way up. He's looking down, and then he has nice movement, but he's looking down. So again, I'd rather keep his head slightly not transformed so he can look up. On his leg, a little bit less movement here just because it's more sturdy for the combined mode connections, and that's on ratchets. You do have the swivels and you do have the knees again, and that is it for your articulation. And I just popped out this combiner peg thing. There we go. So that is about it for articulation. So at this point, the last thing really to do is going to be bring in the other two, just so you can kind of see them all together. And I just like the dynamics of the set. They have a lot of personality too. When I get the next set, I'll bring in the actual G2 Constructicons so you can compare them and see what they look like. So here we go. Here is Excavator, and you just get that feeling that Long Haul here is just like the stockish brute of the set. And then here is Bulldozer, who I've also modified to give a red visor because I didn't feel the blue fit in. He looked too heroic. So there you go. There's the set of them so far. We just got 2 more to go, and then we're on to the combined mode of Giant. So this is T2RX6. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next time.